Okay, so what I'm going to do is a few things today. One is I'd like to quickly go through some of these collections that we've got. I've got a few over there as well, which if you could bring over, that would be good. So I'll try and go through these quickly to give you some clue as to how I would assess the quality and the sort of comments that would feed back to you making better collections and also making it easier for yourself when you're identifying. So that's one thing. I would like to try and just go, even if it's just across the car park, and dig up one or two herbs, and someone can be the cinematographer, and we will, I can see you're dying to do that, and we will dig up and actually go through the process of how do you deal with sort of material that doesn't fit neatly on the sheet, and then we probably will run out of time, but if we have time, we'll look at a few plants in terms of recognition. But if not, I think we can sort of fit some in this afternoon, even as a break. G'day. So I would just show you this little Spot 2 GPS emergency beacon. So this is for me it's the pick of the latest versions of, I don't get commission by the way, of emergency beacons. So if any of you are into going into rough places or out of the way places or extended field work, if you end up doing it as an honours student or a research student, you should actually, I would say you have to take one of these with you if you're one of my students. If you're someone else's students and they're not offering you anything, suggest something like this, because the beauty of this one is that it's an emergency beacon, which is pretty accurate anywhere in the world, but also anywhere in Australia or anywhere in the world. Again, you can press a certain button which will send a message to people if you pay for a service. So the machine's a couple of $100, but you can pay for a service where one or two services. One which allows you to press a button and send a message that goes as an email to the people that you've listed. So it could be, your partner or your parents. It could be your supervisor. It could be the regional ranger, or it could be all of those people. And it will actually send an email with a link of where that was sent from, so they can then click on it and bring up the location in a map. Okay, enough of that. So we're very quickly, thanks Sam and Nick, we're going through these specimens. Now, if I look at that specimen, my first impression is there's a fair bit on that sheet, and some of it's coming off the sheet, and you'll see that some bits have been a bit damaged. The material, when I look at it, looks pretty good, but there is a reason why you might have done this on one sheet, but I would have actually pressed this as two sheets. This is one, and then this is another, and that way, the only reason for doing it all on one would be if you didn't have enough, you were running out of newspaper or you were running out of cardboards. But really, if you can do those separately, then that's good. The other thing I'd notice is that this is the best piece, which will make for a nice specimen, because it has fruits. It's not going to have flowers when it's got fruits. At least this one, it is possible to identify it because there are keys that cover these things, and you can identify them even from vegetative material, fortunately. But that doesn't always apply. Now, if I look at that sort of edge on, there are a few places where it's not perfectly flat, and that's partly because these bits and pieces have been overlapping. So I'd just be wary of trying to fit too much on one sheet in the field. the material itself, the fertile piece, is actually quite nice. Okay, here we've got, again, similar issue. You can see some of the fruits, maybe some of the fruits have fallen apart and they've fallen off the specimen. Partly that's an indication that it hasn't been dried quickly enough, but also this plant, this species, is prone to that. So those bits, and if you were desperate, you could still use that, and those fruits, in any case, in a specimen like that where the fruits have fallen off, or where, similarly with a eucalypt, where the seeds are being released, or you've got some fruits to go with the buds, but the fruits were windfall and that's separate, or they're from an old branch and you don't want to press an old branch just of dry twigs, then these sorts of bits will go in your cellophane bag and in an envelope with a tag, not a jeweler's tag, but just with a neat bit of A4 paper, plain paper cut with your collector's name and number written on in pencil. Now, you'll also see that that some of these leaves, that's because, again, because partly that's fragile, partly because of the nature of the specimen, but you can see that some of the leaves have already separated off. So the only thing you can do there is to try and get those specimens dry quickly, and that means either using that sort of fan blower setup that I've illustrated and Ruth Paltson has illustrated online, or for the people that are on campus to use the dryer here. Actually, the fan heater dryer is actually even better than the herbarium dryer that we've got at the moment. We're getting another one built. Now you can see that that leaf has been folded over. There are several leaves that have been folded over just during the pressing, and if you've got the time before it gets dried, you can, after a few hours of having been pressed, you'll be able to open up the press and tidy those things up. Of course, you want some leaves facing up and some leaves facing down. Okay, we've got same sort of issue here again. The really good part here is that there's lots of material, and so more than enough for one sheet, which is really good, but don't try and press that all on one sheet in the field if you possibly can. One way you can double the use of the cardboards is if you are able to get hold of foam, because then you can have a cardboard, specimen, foam, cardboard, specimen, foam, specimen, cardboard. Okay. The side that's against the cardboard will be the side that will end up being flat, and will end up being the side that gets mounted against the herbarium sheet. And the side against the foam, of course the foam has some give, so it will be the surface that has more up and down on it, but still pressed flat, but still it will have the relief, if you like, and that will be the surface that's facing you after you've mounted the specimen. So think about that when you're deciding which way you're orientating that specimen, because if all the flowers are facing one way and you can see them beautifully, you don't want that to be the surface that's facing down eventually on the sheet. Okay? So again here I would have separated this out a bit, but it's actually all quite nice. There's one trap. Well, given that we're putting Sam's work on public display, we'll give. Oh, sorry, Nick. We'll give him one clue here. Come in close and tell me what's unusual here. I'm holding what's unusual here. So we've got. I'll just so that the video can see. We've got a nice specimen, and there's probably not much giving away, not much as to what it is, because of this lovely specimen of the bark, which is really good that that's there. Of course, that's no substitute for not describing the bark on the label. Okay, so we've got this specimen. That's one. There's another one. sort of a large bit. There's no reason why Nick can't mix and match this, but there's the odd one out. Okay, so does that look like a fruit or a flower or what? Okay, what it is? Any clues? It's, I said, is it a flower, a fruit, or what? The answer is, or what? Okay, and the answer is that it was an inflorescence or a growth, anyway, that has been P4 Tommy Leon is the clue. Parasitized. Okay, so it's an aberration, and every year, now that isn't a problem here. In fact, it's a good thing. I mean, I'm not saying you have to include that, but it wouldn't hurt if you did, as long as you've got good normal stuff. And you've got buds, you've got flowers, and you've got young fruits. Gorgeous. Okay, it's all pressed nicely. The mistake is when people include things like this as their only source of flowers or fruits, and they think, oh, I've got the flowers or the fruits. It happens every year on things like casuarina or alocasuarina, and it happens commonly on some other things. It happens even on eucalypts, where there are some insects that have gum nut-like, capsule-like egg cases that are sitting on the stem. Don't be fooled by those things. Okay, very quickly moving on. Nice material of this herbaceous plant with the base. We looked at this before. You can see the branching pattern. You can see the roots. Not over excessive. Something like this you could trim off. You know, you don't. Simple. You can trim that off. There's good fertile material. That's quite feasible to identify. And what I would suggest is this is another case where I would have probably collected another half dozen of these inflorescences and put them here during the drying process, so that I had material that I could pull apart for identification, and some of that material could have then been packaged as additional material anyway with the sheet. Okay, so that's a really good thing to do. But that's nice. Again, same thing here. Be a bit careful about how, like, that's a bit of a, it's starting to look like a preparation for forage rather than, for fodder rather than a neat specimen. So the idea is to, you know, zigzag the material so you can see what's going on better. But that will fit all on the sheet, and it would work, and it's fertile. Okay, so it's got some definitely redeeming features. Okay, this looks like it's been collected from a very wet spot. Some of this has been submerged. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that we can see roots. It's actually not too bad. There's flowering or young fruiting material, leaf material. It's not clear that the base is there, but you can get a sense of what's going on. That's sort of not too bad. This one, it clearly has the base of the plant. You've got a lovely rooting system. There's not much fertile material here, and so what you will find is that unless you've got additional material for something like this, you may find it tricky to identify. Actually, there's a nice flower there that's presented well. There's another one here that's closed up, and this one. Now, this is a case again where I would have gone and arranged that so that it was more obvious, and even I would have taken some other flowers and pressed them even on stems, taken some other shoots on a separate sheet and slide it down so that the flowers go like that, so that when you press them you can turn them up the other way, and you're able to use them nicely for identification and also for presentation. All right, this is, we looked at this last time. It hasn't got the base of the plant, yet it's herbaceous. So the material that's there is really lovely, but it gets marked down because of the lack of the base of the plant. So the choices there are to basically leave it out or recollect. Again, you can watch things like this. Make sure that some of the leaves are facing up one way, some are facing up the other way, but avoid this sort of folded over edge if you can.
Could you put in two parts, like get the base and put it next to it?
Yes.
Because it's big?
Yes, you could.
Cut it off?
Yes, potentially you could. You've got two solutions there. One is to either have that large plant which you... three options. One is you have a large plant which you fold. Another is you have, say, some of the base and then some of the shoots separately, but cut. And a third is that you have a small plant for the base and parts of the top. So you might have a whole small plant that's sterile that gives you the basal leaves and the root system and so on, but then you have stems with the flowering and fruiting material. And so it will depend on what's available, and we will try and have a look at that just across when we go to the car park. Okay, good material there. And this one we saw was no fruiting material. There's a little bit of flowering material. What's there has been really nicely done, but it would be really nice to have more material for identification and for presentation. Okay, this is a bit of a monster, and so my hat goes off to Nick for even attempting this, and I hope he didn't get cut by this plant. This is a plant that I wouldn't approach without, well, I would sometimes in my youthful enthusiasm. I'll go for it even if I'm not prepared, but you should be a regular Boy Scout with this one. Yes, you too. And have gloves. And so I specifically have either gardening gloves or leather gloves that I'll wear when I'm approaching this, because what happens is you go in to get the base of the plant, and this thing will cut you, and they get their revenge for me having done lots of anatomy on them. Now, at first this looks like a bit of a mess, but it is the case that we can see there's been a stem going along the ground, and there's a shoot coming up, and you've actually got the roots there. So even though Nick has not dug up the plant, correct me if I'm wrong, but just from what I see, he hasn't actually dug up a plant, he's ripped off a plant that's off a stem that's been lying on the ground. And that's, in this case, that's great, because it's shown what the base of the plant does look like. And in this case, he's compromised a bit in that he doesn't have this all continuous, and so it is a bit cut up. But there's enough of it, and that it works for me. But this is another case where I try and get whole shoots. And I will actually. Often you can end up with bases that are like this, and I will actually run a machete from the bottom in the same way that I get you to hold your little flower upside down and cut down it with the razor blade. I do the same thing with these massive things with either a machete or some sort of knife, and I'll cut that in half, and that does three things. One is that this one's okay, it's not so big, but on those big ones it will reduce the thickness, it will give a flat surface against which to mount, it will create a cut surface, which means that the whole thing dries much more quickly, and it gives me 2 specimens instead of 1. So it works really well all round. But that's good. It's fruiting material, but for this family, fruiting material is more important than flowering material. So that's quite good. So we've got a climber here with fruit. I would say with something like this that there's a certain limit up to which point you know, if there had just been a tiny little stem covering a third of the shoot, I would have said, not enough material. This has perhaps gone to the other extreme where there's sort of like a mass of material, and it's not necessarily presenting at its best. Okay, I've turned it over, I can see much more. That will work well, okay, so I wouldn't want to criticise that too much, but you could end up being a bit more sort of, you could have a little less material and fewer overlaps of the material, and that would just make that a fraction better. Again, there's fruiting material there, so if you may or may not, for rainforest plants generally, especially from about Sydney north, there are good tools to identify those, even if you only have fruits or even if you only have sterile material. I do not want sterile material, but with something like this, trying to identify that using PlantNet is going to be impossible. So, because you've got no fruits to start, well, not impossible, but difficult. So with something like this, and that other first plant, you'll need something like the Harden, Williams, MacDonald book on rainforest trees and shrubs of New South Wales and northern New South Wales and southeast Queensland. I just point out that Nick did something really smart here. He's got this big lumpy specimen, and he's separated that specimen from the next specimen by a cardboard so that it wasn't going to damage. Otherwise, that climber would have been quite damaged by that big plant. Okay, right, you see that they're coming off the top of the edge. What's more valuable, a centimetre of more of the root system or the flowers? I go with the flowers. So with this, I would have gone like that and then trimmed off those roots, which answers your question, yes, Deirdre? And again, I'd probably spend a bit more time just making sure that the leaves are spread out. But fundamentally, you know, for early collections, for your first set of collections, that's a bloody good attempt. Okay, it's more informative than if you just cut off there. Okay, and there's a bit of quite a bit of material there to play with. Okay, sometimes ferns can be a bit of a pain too. As a rule, I wouldn't bother collecting a fern unless it was fertile. Okay, so if I can't see any sori, then I would not include it in the collection. Now,
Chuck it.
yeah. So I'd also try to get the rhizome. Now that doesn't apply to tree ferns, where I'm not looking for the trunk of the tree fern, and which would include roots and the bases of leaves. But on a tree fern, you would need to have the base of the leaf and other sections. Frankly, for this herbarium assignment, I'd leave tree ferns well alone. With ferns, I think it's good if you can include. Remember, you get some marks for diversity. So if you've got, say, 6 grasses in your collection, or 6 daisies, you're going to compromise, or 6 eucalypts, you're going to compromise, or 6 members of the Myrtaceae, you're going to drastically compromise the variation, that diversity, the taxonomic diversity, and you'll probably compromise the life form diversity. So I'm looking for both a variety of life forms and a variety of groups. So if you've made a good effort to get that across flowering plants, then that's one thing, but if you can get into either a gymnosperm or a fern or whatever, then that's good too. Ouch. So I suspect, without looking too closely, that this is another case of galling. As much as that might be galling, yeah, because you can see you can actually see something going on there. It looks like nice little buds without looking at there. Can you see? But those things look like monsters, and that's probably what they are. So that's probably one to leave out. I'm struggling to see any fertile material, so again I'd probably be leaving that out. Now just a word, there's a collector's name with initial and last name and number, and that's what we want to see. Pencil is what I use. Indelible ink pen is okay too. Okay, so this looks like windfall rather than fresh material.